Well, the world has so far failed to stop the self-proclaimed Islamic State from rampaging through the Middle East. In his new book, Day of Wrath, William Forstchen writes about the potential for an attack here in the U.S. Forstchen is a New York Times best-selling author and military historian, and he joins us from North Carolina. William, thank you so much for being here with us. I do appreciate it.
It is an honor and a pleasure to be with you tonight.
And forgive me if I butchered your last name just a little bit. I'm so sorry about that.
No problem whatsoever.
Okay, so the president said when he was making the case with Congress last year to provide support for counterterrorism and fighting terrorism, that there was not an imminent threat to the homeland. Many experts have said the same thing since then. Why do you say that there is a threat imminent within the U.S. from ISIS?
ISIS has fulfilled most of the promises that it has been laying down for years, and we are looking at a global conflict. What troubles me the most is we see terrorist organizations striking at children, what are called soft targets. What happened in Pakistan last month? What happened in Nigeria back in the spring? Hundreds of children have died or been sent into slavery. Frankly, it does not matter to me if the child is an American, Nigerian, Pakistani, Liberian. It is a child. And terrorist organizations are targeting children and women. And America has to wake up. It's going to come to our shores.
But William, why are you so sure about that? Because we've not seen those kinds of attacks, at least not from foreign terrorists. We have seen it from homegrown terrorism. But why are you so convinced of that?
Because that is part of the ISIS game plan. They have clearly stated what they were going. They were stating a year ago that they were going to establish a caliphate, which they did. They're continuing to expand into Iraq, regardless of what some media sources are saying. They have clearly stated, as we saw in the video released just a couple of days ago, that they're going to bring the war into Europe. And they've also clearly stated they're going to hit the United States. They don't go for the hard targets, they go for the soft targets. And what are the softest targets? Schools, churches, synagogues.
And you feel like that those soft targets are equally vulnerable in the United States. Let me just ask you this. Did you see the video that was released of the Jordanian pilot who was purportedly burned alive as a sea change, a game change in this?
Absolutely, yes. And I forced myself to watch the entire video. I'm a military historian. I've seen plenty of footage from World War II. I've been to places like Dachau. What I witnessed last week was the most horrific nightmare possible. And we as a world community, let's start thinking as a global community. Let's leave the partisan politics behind. This is a medieval nightmare, and we have to face it.
Part of what you're calling for in your book, The Day of Wrath, is first of all to acknowledge that we are vulnerable to these attacks, and then you also call for an increased preparedness. What does that look like in your mind?
Increased preparedness might be controversial. I'm losing hope that our federal government in the United States is going to respond to internal security, but from the local level on up, we have to rethink security at schools in particular. And that's reinforced by what happened in Pakistan, that's reinforced by what happened in Nigeria, and also in Russia in 2004. Rethink school security, and then again, the usual places, churches, synagogues, public gatherings.
Liam, I want to push you to be a little more specific there in terms of just saying more than just rethink security there. I mean, are you calling for arming teachers, or
Yes.
What are you calling for?
I'm absolutely calling that. Let me specify, because this spins off into a side debate. I am asking for trained, highly trained teachers who are familiar. We have many, many teachers who are ex-military. I believe that several teachers in each school who are prepared, trained, and yes, carrying concealed. They might not be able to stop a terrorist, but they could slow them down long enough to buy precious minutes for their children until professional help arrived. It could be the difference between, look at Newtown, where 20 children died. Imagine 2 terrorists walking into Newtown. It could have been 400 children.
I'm wondering,
imagine one teacher with a gun slowing them down.
Many would say that the conversation right now should really be about how to combat terrorism across the world, where it's happening now, mainly in the Middle East, and that is even what our president has called for, providing extra resources and personnel to counter terrorism where it's happening now. Shouldn't that be the focus right now, since the threat of a homeland attack from ISIS is speculative? It's theoretical at this point.
Well, I'm a historian. Let us look at World War II. Did we specify that we were going to attack only in one place only, Normandy, and then once we take care of that, we'll go to the next place and the next place? Did we lower our guard in terms of internal security during World War II? No. We did a global effort in a global alliance, and we cannot neglect one in favor of the other. And yes, this will be expensive, but what's the price we're going to pay if we don't react?
I'm just curious, you released your Day of Wrath book. It's an e-book, it's a self-published book. Did you find that you had resistance from traditional publishing houses?
I've worked with a wonderful publisher for years, Tor Forge, which has published quite a few of my books, Pillar to the Sky, and a book about EMP called 1 Second After. I specifically chose going self-published because I felt the need was so urgent that going traditional publishing route usually takes a year to a year and a half. I started working on the book on June, and it was released on August 17th.
Dr. William Forstchen, thank you so much for taking some time to talk to us. We do appreciate it.
I appreciate what you're doing. Thank you very much.
And this is Arise America.